Part 5: The Warship That Shook the Galaxy. The warning came 3 months after the battle at Freeport Nova. Mira detected a massive fleet gathering at the edge of Teresh space. 40 Vrathos warships, including heavy cruisers and destroyers. Leading them was the Dominion's Fist, Kelthros's new flagship. It was 3 times the size of the scrap heap and carried enough weapons to level a planet. Kelthros sent a message to all Teresh stations. His voice was cold and filled with hate. You have harbored the human criminals. You have built ships in defiance of Vrathos authority. Now you will face the consequences. Surrender the humans and your fleet, or we will destroy every station, every ship, and every planet in your territory. You have 24 hours. Fear spread through the Teresh Commonwealth. Their scrapyard fleet had 20 ships, all untested in major combat. The Vrathos had 40 warships, all battle-hardened and powerful. It seemed like an impossible fight. Kira called an emergency meeting of all ship captains. They gathered on the main Teresh station, their faces showing doubt and fear. We cannot win this fight, one captain said. We should surrender and hope for mercy. The Vrathos do not show mercy, another captain argued. They will kill us all anyway. Then we run, a third captain suggested. Scatter into deep space and hide. Daewon stood up. We fight. The room went silent. With respect, Captain Daewon, we will die if we fight, Kira said quietly. Maybe, Daewon agreed. But if we run, we lose everything anyway. Our homes, our freedom, our dignity. The Vrathos think we are weak. They think they can crush us because they have bigger ships and more weapons. But they do not understand what we understand. What do we understand? Asked a young Teresh captain. That war is not about who has the most guns, Daewon said. It is about who wants to win more. It is about courage, creativity, and the willingness to do whatever it takes. The Vrathos fight because they are ordered to. We fight because we have no choice. That makes us more dangerous than any warship. He looked around the room at the various captains from different species. I have a plan. It is crazy and it will probably get us all killed. But if it works, we will win this war in one battle. Are you with me? One by one, the captains nodded. They were terrified, but they trusted the human who had already accomplished the impossible. Daewon explained his plan. It was indeed crazy. Instead of waiting for the Vrathos to attack, they would strike first. The scrapyard fleet would jump directly into the middle of the Vrathos formation, causing chaos and confusion. While the enemy fleet was disorganized, the scrap heap and a boarding team would attack the Dominion's Fist directly. If they could capture or destroy the flagship, the rest of the fleet might retreat. That is suicide, one captain said. That is human, Jiwoo said with a grim smile. The fleet prepared for battle. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Shields were powered to maximum. The crews said prayers in their various languages and made peace with the possibility of death. On the bridge of the scrap heap, Daewon's crew was quiet and focused. They had been through so much together. They had built a ship from garbage, escaped from prison, and fought impossible battles. Now they would face their greatest challenge. Everyone ready? Daewon asked. Weapons ready, Hana confirmed. Engines at full power, Jiwoo said. Navigation locked, Taesung reported. Let us end this, Mira said quietly. The scrapyard fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. When they emerged, they were in the center of the Vrathos formation, surrounded by 40 enemy warships. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The Vrathos commanders were shocked. No fleet in history had been foolish enough to jump into the middle of an enemy formation. Then Daewon gave the order. All ships fire at will. The battle erupted in a storm of weapons fire and explosions. The scrapyard fleet fought with desperate fury. Their ships were smaller and weaker, but they were also more maneuverable and unpredictable. They darted between the larger Vrathos vessels, firing at vulnerable spots and then retreating before the enemy could respond. The Vrathos fleet tried to organize, but their formation was broken. Ships collided as they tried to target the fast-moving attackers. Commanders shouted conflicting orders. It was chaos. The scrap heap pushed through the battle toward the Dominion's Fist. The flagship's massive batteries opened fire, but Taesung flew like a man possessed. He spun the ship through impossible maneuvers, dodging most shots and absorbing others on the strongest parts of their armor. We are taking heavy damage, Jiwoo warned. Shields down to 50%. Keep going, Daewon ordered. They reached the flagship and activated the grappling system. Giant claws extended from the scrap heap's hull and latched onto the Dominion's fist. The two ships were now connected. "Boarding team, with me," Day One shouted. 15 humans, including Day One, Hana, and several engineers, suited up in combat armor they had built from salvaged materials. They carried plasma rifles with human modifications and cutting tools for breaching hulls. They cut through the flagship's outer hull and entered its corridors. Vrathos Marines rushed to stop them, and a fierce firefight erupted. The Marines were bigger and stronger, but the humans fought with a ferocity born from months of imprisonment and humiliation. Hana led a team to the weapon control center. They fought their way through corridors filled with enemies, using grenades and plasma fire. When they reached the control center, Hana connected her datapad to the systems and began shutting down the flagship's batteries one by one. Day One pushed toward the bridge with the rest of the team. Every corridor was a battle. They lost 2 people in the fighting, but they kept moving forward. Nothing would stop them. They reached the bridge doors and planted explosives. The blast tore through the reinforced metal, and the humans stormed inside. Kelthros stood at the command station, surrounded by his elite guards. His face showed shock, then rage, then something like respect. "You humans are like insects," Kelthros said. "No matter how many times we crush you, you keep coming back." "We are survivors," Day One said, raising his weapon. "And today we are your worst nightmare." The guards opened fire. The humans took cover behind consoles and returned fire. The bridge became a war zone. Explosions and plasma bolts filled the air. One by one, the guards fell. Kelthros himself grabbed a massive weapon and fired at the humans. He was a skilled warrior, and he wounded 3 of them before Day One managed to hit his weapon with a precise shot, destroying it. The 2 leaders faced each other across the ruined bridge. Kelthros drew a knife as long as a human forearm. Day One had only a small combat blade. They fought hand to hand. Kelthros was stronger and faster, but Day One had been fighting for survival his entire imprisonment. He dodged the massive swings and struck at vulnerable points. The fight was brutal and lasted several minutes. Finally, Day One managed to disarm Kelthros and force him to his knees. The Vrathos commander was bleeding and breathing hard, but his eyes still burned with defiance. "Kill me," Kelthros said. "I have failed my people." "No," Day One said. "You are going to help me end this battle." He forced Kelthros to the communication station and made him open a channel to the entire Vrathos fleet. "This is Commander Kelthros," the Vrathos said reluctantly. "The flagship has been captured. The humans control our weapon systems. You have 60 seconds to withdraw, or they will fire on you with our own batteries." The Vrathos fleet hesitated. Their flagship was captured. Their formation was shattered. Half their ships were damaged. And these impossible humans were still fighting. One by one, the Vrathos ships jumped to faster than light speed and fled. The battle was over. The scrapyard fleet had lost 8 ships and hundreds of crew members, but they had won. They had defeated a force twice their size and captured the flagship of their enemy. News of the victory spread across the galaxy within hours. The species that had been oppressed by the Vrathos saw hope. The smaller civilizations that had lived in fear saw that resistance was possible, and humanity, the youngest spacefaring species, became known as the species that could turn garbage into victory. The Galactic Council sent representatives to investigate. They found the scrap heap still connected to the Dominion's fist, both ships damaged but intact. They found the scrapyard fleet, a collection of strange ships that should not work but did. And they found humans who had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The Council offered humanity full military contracts, protection, and recognition as a major power. The Vrathos Dominion, humiliated by their defeat, agreed to a peace treaty and promised to stop their aggressive expansion. 6 months after the battle, Day One and his crew finally returned to Earth. They flew the scrap heap into orbit, and the planet below erupted in celebration. They were heroes who had proven that humans could compete with any species in the galaxy. They were offered medals, positions of honor, and wealth beyond imagination. But for Day One, Jiwoo, Hana, Taesung, Mira, and the rest of the crew, the real victory was simpler. They had survived. They had built something impossible. They had shown the galaxy what humans were capable of. The scrap heap was eventually placed in a museum on Earth, her scarred hull and mismatched plating preserved forever. On the hull, they painted words in every language known to humanity and dozens of alien languages. Part 4. The legend grows. The scrap heap dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a massive space station. It was not a Vrathos station, which was good news. The station looked old and weathered, with ships of a dozen different species docked to its ports. A large sign in multiple languages read, "Freeport Nova, Independent Territory. Where are we?" asked Day 1. Mira checked their position. "We are on the edge of Galactic Council space. Freeport Nova is neutral ground. Traders, mercenaries, and refugees come here. The Vrathos have no authority here." "Good," Day 1 said. "We need supplies, repairs, and information. Request docking permission." The station granted them permission quickly, probably because they were curious about the strange ship that had just arrived. When the scrap heap docked, a small crowd gathered to look at her. Aliens of various species pointed and talked in their different languages. An old trader, a species called Taresh with blue skin and 4 eyes, approached Daiwan as he walked down the boarding ramp. "I have never seen a ship like that before." "What species built it?" "Humans," Daiwan said simply. The Taresh's eyes widened. "Humans? But humans are so new to space travel. And this ship looks like it was built from parts of many different vessels." "That is because it was," Daiwan said. "We built it from scrap while imprisoned by the Vrathos." News spread through the station like wildfire. Within hours, everyone knew about the human crew that had escaped from Vrathos captivity by building a warship from garbage. Some thought it was a joke. Others were impressed. A few were frightened. Jiwoo and her team spent 3 days making repairs and improvements. Traders offered to sell them parts at good prices, and some even gave them materials for free, impressed by their story. The scrap heap's shields were upgraded to full capacity. The 2 broken plasma cannons were repaired. They even added extra armor plating to vulnerable areas. During this time, Mira continued monitoring galactic communications. What she found was troubling. "The Vrathos have put a bounty on us," she told Daiwan. 10 million credits for our capture or death. They are also sending a hunter fleet to track us down." "Who is leading it?" asked Daiwan. "Kelthros," Mira said. "They demoted him for letting us escape. Now he has one chance to redeem himself by capturing us." Daiwan cursed quietly. He had hoped they would have more time before the Vrathos came after them. On the 4th day, that time ran out. Alarms blared across Freeport Nova. 6 Vrathos warships appeared in the system, their weapons already charged. The station's defense forces, only 3 old cruisers, moved to intercept but were clearly outmatched. "Attention Freeport Nova," a Vrathos voice broadcast. "Surrender the human criminals to us immediately, or we will destroy this station and everyone on it. You have 1 hour to comply." Panic spread through the station. Ships began undocking, trying to flee. The station commander sent a desperate message to the scrap heap. "Please," the commander said, "a reptilian alien with scales and a long tail. We cannot fight them. You must leave, or they will destroy us all." Day 1 looked at his crew. They were tired from days of repairs. The scrap heap was stronger than before, but they were still just 1 ship against 6 Vrathos warships. "We could run," Taesung said quietly. "Jump to faster than light before they can stop us. And leave these people to die because they helped us?" Hana asked sharply. "That is not who we are. We fight," Day 1 decided. "We show the Vrathos that humans do not run." "Jiwoo, can the ship handle combat?" "She was built for this," Jiwoo said with confidence. "Let us show them what the scrap heap can do." The human ship undocked from the station and moved toward the Vrathos fleet. It was a tiny speck compared to the massive warships approaching. Inside the scrap heap's bridge, Hana powered up all weapon systems. Taesung flexed his fingers and prepared to pilot. Jiwoo monitored the engines and power systems. Everyone was calm and focused. "This is going to be interesting," Taesung said. The Vrathos ships opened fire first, launching missiles and energy beams. The scrap heap's shields flared as they absorbed the impacts. Taesung sent the ship into a spinning dive, using debris from old satellites as cover. "Return fire," Day 1 ordered. The railguns hammered out rounds at incredible speeds. The first Vrathos ship took 3 direct hits to its shields. The plasma cannons followed up, superheating the shields until they collapsed. The 4th shot punched through the hull and the Vrathos ship began venting atmosphere. "Target damaged," Hana reported. 2 more Vrathos ships focused their fire on the scrap heap. Energy beams tore through space and one hit them directly. The ship shuddered and sparks flew from a control panel. "Shields down to 70%, Jiwoo said. "But holding." What the Vrathos did not understand was that the scrap heap's shield system was unique. It combined technology from multiple species, creating overlapping frequencies that made the shields stronger than they should be. Standard Vrathos weapons were designed to punch through standard shields. These shields were anything but standard. Tae-sung flew the ship through the Vrathos formation like a dancer moving through a crowd. The asymmetrical design that looked so ugly made the ship incredibly agile. She could turn sharply, accelerate unexpectedly, and change direction in ways that confused enemy targeting computers. Hana fired missiles from the Draken launcher. They were old weapons, but she had modified them with human guidance systems. The missiles weaved through space, avoiding defensive fire and striking 2 Vrathos ships simultaneously. 2 more targets damaged, she shouted. The Vrathos commander was furious. He had expected an easy victory. Instead, this garbage ship was tearing his fleet apart. All ships focus fire on the human vessel, he ordered. Destroy it now. 6 ships firing at once created a storm of energy and metal. The scrap heap took multiple hits. Her shields flickered and dropped to 30%. Alarms blared throughout the ship. We cannot take much more of this, Jiwoo warned. Daewon made a quick decision. Hana overcharged the plasma cannons. I do not care if it is safe. Give me everything we have. Captain, if I do that, the cannons might explode, Hana warned. Better they explode than we die. Do it. Hana redirected power from every non-essential system into the plasma cannons. The weapons began to glow brighter and brighter, building up an incredible charge. Firing! She shouted. The plasma cannons unleashed their full power. 4 beams of superheated energy lanced through space, each one as bright as a small star. They struck the nearest Vrathos ship and simply melted through its armor. The ship broke apart in a massive explosion. The other Vrathos ships hesitated, shocked by the display of power. In that moment of hesitation, the scrap heap struck again. Railguns fired at maximum rate. Missiles launched in a coordinated spread. The mining lasers that they had rigged as point defense were turned on enemy ships, cutting through their smaller craft. 2 more Vrathos ships took critical damage. One lost its engines and began drifting. Another had its weapon systems completely destroyed. The Vrathos commander realized he was losing. His fleet of 6 warships was being defeated by a single human ship built from garbage. It was impossible. It was humiliating. Retreat, he ordered. All ships jumped to faster than light immediately. The 3 remaining functional Vrathos ships fled, leaving their damaged companions behind. The battle was over. Freeport Nova erupted in cheers. The station's defense forces had barely fired a shot, but they had witnessed something incredible. A single human ship had fought 6 Vrathos warships and won. The scrap heap limped back to the station for repairs. Her hull was scorched and dented. One of the plasma cannons had indeed exploded, just as Hana predicted, but the rest of the ship was intact. As Daewon walked down the boarding ramp, he was met by dozens of aliens. They applauded, cheered, and shouted their thanks in various languages. The station commander approached with tears in his large reptilian eyes. You saved us, the commander said. You did not have to fight. You could have run, but you stayed and fought for people you barely know. That is true courage. Over the next week, representatives from various species came to see the scrap heap. Some were traders offering lucrative contracts. Others were mercenaries wanting to hire the crew. A few were government officials from smaller civilizations. One group stood out. They were Taresh, the same species as the old trader who had first greeted them. Their leader was a woman named Kira, and she came with a proposition. The Vrathos Dominion has been expanding into our territory for years, Kira said. They take our planets, enslave our people, and claim it is for the good of the galaxy. We cannot fight them alone, but you proved that the Vrathos can be beaten. We want your help. We are just 1 crew with 1 ship, Daewon said. Then help us build more ships, Kira said. Teach us your methods. Show us how to turn scrap into weapons. In return, we will give you supplies, safe harbor, and anything else you need. Daewon looked at his crew. They should return to Earth. They should go home and be with their families. But Mira was right when she said the Vrathos would never stop hunting them. And now they had a chance to help others who were suffering under Vrathos oppression. We will help, Daewon said, but we do it our way. For the next 3 months, the humans taught the Taresh and other species their philosophy. They showed them how to look at debris and see possibilities, how to combine incompatible technologies. Part 3, The Breaking Storm. The final 6 weeks were brutal. The crew worked 20 hours a day, sleeping in shifts of 4 hours. They survived on stimulant pills that Ji-Woo had found in an old medical kit and sheer determination. Every face was gaunt and exhausted, but nobody complained. Tae-sung returned from solitary confinement after 3 weeks. He was thinner and had bruises all over his body, but his eyes still burned with anger and defiance. The first thing he did was go to the hangar to see the scrap heap. "She is beautiful," he said, looking at the strange asymmetrical ship. "She is a monster," Ji-Woo said with a tired laugh, "but she is our monster." The scrap heap was 340 meters long, covered in mismatched hull plating that made her look like a patchwork quilt. Her engines glowed 3 different colors because they came from 3 different species. Her weapons were mounted at odd angles across her hull. She looked like she had been built by someone who had never seen a real spaceship before. But inside, she was a marvel. The power cores hummed with energy. The life support systems worked perfectly. The weapons were all connected to a single firing control. She was ready to fly, almost ready anyway. There were still problems. "The shields are only at 60% capacity," Hana reported. "We are missing the proper generators. What we have will protect us from small arms fire and debris, but not from heavy weapons. The navigation system is unstable," Tae-sung added. "The AI we built from salvaged software keeps crashing. I call it lucky because we are lucky when it works for more than 5 minutes. 2 of the plasma cannons are offline," another engineer said. "We do not have the right focusing crystals." Daewon listened to all the problems and nodded slowly. "We launch anyway. We fix what we can in the next 3 weeks and then we go. A half-finished ship is better than dying in a mining colony." They pushed even harder. Ji-Woo and her team worked on the shields, trying to boost their output. Tae-sung spent every spare moment debugging the navigation AI. Hana manually calibrated each weapon system by hand. With 2 weeks left, Kelthros decided to inspect the lower levels personally. Nobody knew why. Maybe he was bored. Maybe he suspected something. Either way, it was a disaster. The Vrathos commander walked through the maintenance tunnels with a squad of guards. They carried heavy lights that cut through the darkness. They were heading straight for Hangar Bay 7. Mira saw them on the security cameras she had hacked. "They are coming," she said over the communication device they had rigged up. "Kelthros is 5 minutes from the hangar. Everyone get out now," but it was too late. Half the crew was in the hangar, working on the ship. They could not evacuate without being seen. "Hide," Daewon ordered. "Get inside the ship and do not make a sound." The crew scrambled aboard the scrap heap. They closed the hatches and turned off all systems. The ship went dark and silent. 3 minutes later, the hangar doors opened. Kelthros stepped inside with his guards. He looked around at the scorched walls and broken equipment. Then he saw the scrap heap. For a long moment, he just stared at it. His face showed confusion, then understanding, then rage. "What is this?" he roared. "Humans! Show yourselves!" Inside the ship, the crew held their breath. Daewon had his hand on his weapon, ready to fight if necessary. Beside him, Hana had already powered up the ship's internal systems silently. Kelthros walked around the scrap heap slowly. He ran one massive hand along the hull plating. "Incredible," he said quietly. "The worthless humans built a warship from garbage. I did not think your species was capable of this." He turned to his guards. "Find them. Search every corner of this hangar. Bring me the human who leads them." The guards spread out, their weapons raised. 2 of them approached the scrap heap's main hatch. Daewon made a decision. If they were going to be discovered, they would go out fighting. "Hana," he whispered. "Remember those explosives we planted in the station's weapon systems? The ones we were saving for an emergency?" Hana whispered back. "This is the emergency. Blow them." Hana pressed a button on her control pad. Throughout the station, small charges detonated. They were not big enough to cause serious damage, but they disabled weapon batteries, shield generators, and communication relays. Alarms started blaring across the entire station. Kelthros grabbed his communication device. "What is happening?" He shouted into it. "Sir, we are under attack," a voice responded. "Multiple systems are failing. It looks like sabotage." Kelthros's eyes widened. He looked at the scrap heap with new understanding. "The humans. They planned this, everyone to the ship now," Daewon shouted into his communicator. The crew burst out of the scrap heap and ran for the controls. Some fired weapons at the surprised guards. Others rushed to their stations on the ship. It was chaos. Tae-sung reached the pilot seat first. He powered up the engines. The scrap heap roared to life, her 3 different engines creating a sound like thunder. The hangar shook. "Close the hatches!" Jiwoo shouted, sealing the ship. Guards fired at them, but the rounds bounced off the Corthan hull plating. Kelthros ran for the hangar door, calling for reinforcements. "The bay doors are sealed," Tae-sung said. "We cannot get out." Jiwoo looked at the massive doors blocking their exit. They were made of thick metal, designed to survive impacts from meteors. Opening them would take hours using proper controls. "Ram through them," Daewon said. "That could destroy the ship." Jiwoo protested. "Not if our Corthan plating is as strong as we think." "Do it." Tae-sung pushed the engines to full power. The scrap heap lurched forward, accelerating toward the sealed doors. The hangar rushed past in a blur of lights and metal. They hit the doors at full speed. The sound was deafening. Metal screamed and tore. The scrap heap shuddered violently, throwing everyone against their restraints. For a terrible moment, Daewon thought they had failed, that the ship had broken apart. Then they were through, tumbling into open space with sparks and debris trailing behind them. "We made it," Tae-sung shouted. "We are outside the station." "Damage report," Daewon ordered. "Hull is intact," Jiwoo said, checking her screens. "Shields are down to 40%, but they are holding. We lost one of the rear sensors, but everything else is working." "We have company," Hana said grimly. 6 Vrathos fighters launching from the station, and the defense batteries are powering up. "Well, the ones we did not blow up?" Daewon looked at the tactical display. The Vrathos fighters were fast and well armed. The defense batteries could tear them apart if they got a clear shot. The scrap heap was tough, but she had never been tested in real combat. "Hana, weapons free," he said. "Show them what we built." Hana's fingers flew across her controls. The scrap heap's railguns locked onto the nearest fighter. She fired. The railguns were human technology, simple kinetic weapons that fired metal slugs at incredible speeds. But they were loaded with ammunition they had modified from Vrathos military rounds. The combination was devastating. The first fighter exploded in a ball of fire and debris. "Target destroyed," Hana shouted with fierce joy. The other 5 fighters scattered, trying to avoid the same fate. They returned fire, their energy weapons lancing through space. Most shots missed because Tae-sung was flying the scrap heap like a madman, spinning and turning in ways that should not be possible for a ship her size. The asymmetrical design that looked so strange actually made them unpredictable. Enemy targeting computers calculated where the ship should be based on standard movement patterns, but the scrap heap did not follow standard patterns. She moved like a drunken bird, impossible to predict. Hana fired the plasma cannons. 2 more fighters died in superheated explosions. The station's defense batteries finally locked on and fired. Massive energy beams cut through space toward them. "Brace!" Tae-sung shouted, throwing the ship into a steep dive. The beams missed by meters. One grazed their shields and the entire ship shook. "Shields down to 20%, Jiwoo reported. 3 fighters remained, and they were attacking from different angles, trying to box the scrap heap in. The defense batteries were charging for another shot. "We need to leave," Mira said. "If we stay here, they will eventually hit us." "She is right," Daewon agreed. "Tae-sung, get us to faster than light speed. Any direction, just away from here." "The navigation system is still unstable," Tae-sung warned. "Do it anyway." Tae-sung activated the faster-than-light drive. The cobbled-together system hummed and sparked. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to twist and bend around them. The scrap heap jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving debris station Theta 9 and the pursuing fighters behind. In the sudden silence, the crew allowed themselves to breathe. They had done it. They had escaped. Then Lucky, the unstable AI, appeared on the screens. It was represented by a simple smiley face that Tae-sung had programmed as a joke. "Warning," Lucky said in a cheerful voice. "Navigation error detected. Current destination unknown. Estimated time to system exit 4 hours. Have a nice trip." "Unknown destination?" Jiwoo asked. "Where are we going?" Tae-sung checked his controls and went pale. "I have no idea." The nav system picked a random location. "We could be heading anywhere." Mira started laughing. It was a slightly hysterical sound. "We escaped from prison, built a warship from garbage, destroyed 6 enemy fighters, and now we are flying blind through space. This is the most human thing I have ever done." Part 2. The impossible blueprint. Mira worked on the stolen datapad for 3 days straight. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. and her fingers moved across the screen like she was playing a musical instrument. The pad was old Vrathos technology that she had found in the recycling pile, and she had spent hours rewiring it to access the station's computer network. "I found something," she said finally, calling Daewon and the others to her corner of the sleeping quarters. On the screen was a map of Debris Station Theta 9. Most of it showed the sorting facilities, guard stations, and living quarters. But in the lower levels, marked in red, was a large empty space. "What is that?" asked Daewon. "Hangar Bay 7, Mira said. "According to the records, it was damaged in a pirate attack about 15 years ago. The Vrathos sealed it off and never bothered to repair it. It is not on the patrol routes. The cameras are all dead. And it is big enough to hold a ship." Jiwoo leaned closer to look at the map. "How do we get there?" "Through the maintenance tunnels," Mira said. "The Vrathos are too big to use them, so they never patrol down there. We would have to crawl through some tight spaces, but we could move materials without being seen." Daewon studied the map for a long time. It was risky. If they were caught moving parts through the tunnels, Kelthros would have them all executed. But if they did nothing, they would spend 10 years sorting garbage until they were broken shells of themselves. "We do it," he said. "But we need a design first. Jiwoo, Hana, can you build me a ship from the parts we have collected?" The two women looked at each other. Building a ship was not like fixing a broken engine or replacing a damaged component. It required careful engineering, precise calculations, and proper facilities. They had none of those things. "Show me everything we have hidden," Jiwoo said. That night they made a complete inventory. They had power cores from a Viridian dreadnought, hull plating from a Corthan freighter, known across the galaxy for being nearly indestructible, computer systems from 3 different species, weapon components from 4 more, engines, life support systems, navigation equipment, and hundreds of smaller pieces. Jiwoo and Hana spread out papers and started drawing. They worked by the light of a small lamp, sketching designs and crossing them out, arguing in whispers about power distribution and structural integrity. "This is impossible," Hana said after 2 hours. "Nothing we have is compatible. Viridian power cores use plasma conduits. Human systems use standard electrical wiring. We cannot connect them." "Then we make an adapter," Jiwoo said. "We build a power distribution network from scratch. It will be messy, but it can work. The hull shape makes no sense. Corthan plating is heavy. If we use it for the whole ship, we will need massive engines. But the engines we have are from 7 different ship types. They will not provide balanced thrust, so we make the ship asymmetrical. We put the heavier armor on the front and sides where we need it most. We mount the engines at angles to compensate for the imbalance. It will not be pretty, but it will fly." They worked for 6 days, sleeping only a few hours each night. Slowly, a design emerged. It was the strangest ship blueprint anyone had ever seen. The hull was asymmetrical and covered in mismatched plating. The engines were mounted at odd angles. The weapon systems were scattered across the surface with no apparent pattern. By every standard of galactic ship design, it was a disaster. But Jiwoo saw something else. She saw a ship that would be unpredictable in combat. A ship whose asymmetry would make it harder to target. A ship that combined the best technology from a dozen species into something new. "We will call it the scrap heap," she said with a tired smile. Daewon looked at the design and nodded slowly. "Can you build it?" "If we are very careful, very lucky, and very crazy, then yes," Jiwoo said. "But it will take months. Maybe a year." "We have time," Daewon said. "Let us start." The work began in secret. Every day they sorted scrap for the Vrathos. Every night small teams would crawl through the maintenance tunnels carrying components to Hangar Bay 7. It was exhausting. The tunnels were narrow and dark, and they had to move slowly to avoid making noise. When they finally reached the abandoned hangar, they found it exactly as Mira had described. The bay doors were sealed shut. The walls were scorched from old fires. Half the lights were broken. But it was large, private, and perfect for their needs. They set up a small workshop in one corner. They had no proper tools, so they made their own. Welders from mining equipment, cutters from damaged repair drones, measuring instruments from salvaged sensors. Everything was improvised, but everything worked well enough. The scrap heap began to take shape. First, they built the frame using structural beams from 3 different ship types. It took 2 months just to weld the skeleton together. Then they started attaching the hull plating piece by piece. The Corthan alloy was incredibly strong, but also incredibly difficult to work with. They broke 6 welders before figuring out the right technique. Jiwoo worked on the power systems. Connecting Viridian plasma cores to human electrical systems should have been impossible. The power outputs were completely different, but she designed a series of regulators and transformers, building each one by hand from salvaged components. When she finally activated the first power core, the entire hangar lit up with blue-white light. "We have power," she said, and everyone cheered quietly. Hana focused on the weapons. She had railguns from a destroyed human destroyer, plasma cannons from a Zelthari cruiser, and missile pods from a Draken warship. Mounting them was easy. Making them work together was the hard part. Each weapon system used different targeting computers and different firing mechanisms. She spent weeks writing code to integrate them into a single control system. Taesung worked on navigation and flight controls. He was used to piloting human ships with simple, straightforward systems. The scrap heap was anything but simple. He had to combine navigation computers from 4 species, each with different ways of calculating faster-than-light jumps. The result was a system that should not work but somehow did. They worked for 6 months. The scrap heap grew from a skeleton to something that actually looked like a ship. She was ugly and strange, but she was theirs. Then disaster struck. A power surge from their welding operations caused a brief overload in the station's electrical grid. It only lasted a few seconds, but it was enough to trigger an investigation. Vrethos' security team started searching the lower levels looking for the source of the problem. "They are getting closer," Mira warned. 3 teams are moving toward the maintenance tunnels. If they find our supply route, they will trace it back to the hangar. Daewon made a quick decision. "Everyone stop work. Hide the tools and cover the ship with the old tarps we found. Make it look like old debris. Taesung, I need you to create a distraction." "What kind of distraction?" the young pilot asked. "Start a fight with one of the guards. Make it loud. Make it take their attention away from the lower levels." Taesung nodded and ran back through the tunnels. An hour later, alarms started blaring. Taesung had punched a guard in the sorting facility and was now fighting 3 Vrathos at once. He lost quickly, of course, but the commotion drew every security team on the station to that location. Kelthros himself arrived to see what was happening. He looked at Taesung with cold fury. "You dare attack my guards, human?" "Your guard insulted my species," Taesung said, spitting blood. "I will not tolerate that." Kelthros grabbed Taesung by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "You will spend the next month in solitary confinement. Maybe that will teach you respect." He threw Taesung to the other guards, who dragged him away. The investigation into the power surge was forgotten. Taesung had saved them, but he would pay a heavy price. That night, the crew met in their quarters. They were shaken. The Vrathos had come too close to discovering their secret. "We cannot keep doing this," one of the engineers said. "It is too dangerous. Maybe we should just serve our 10 years and hope to survive." Daewon looked around the room. He saw doubt in many faces. He understood it. They were tired, scared, and running out of hope. But giving up was not an option. "Listen to me," he said. "I know you are afraid. I am afraid too. But think about what we have already accomplished. 6 months ago we had nothing but garbage and chains. Now we have a ship. It is not finished, but it exists. We built something impossible because that is what humans do. We take the broken pieces and make them work. We never give up." He paused and looked each person in the eye. "Taesung is in solitary confinement because he protected all of us. We owe it to him to finish what we started. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to Earth. When we get home, we will show the galaxy that humans are not weak. We are survivors. We are builders. We are warriors." Jiwoo stood up. "The captain is right. We finish the ship, and then we get out of here." One by one, the others stood as well. The doubt faded from their faces, replaced by determination. The work continued. They were more careful now, moving smaller loads and spacing out their trips through the maintenance tunnels. Jiwoo completed the power distribution network. Hana integrated the weapon systems. The scrap heap was 70% complete. Then Mira intercepted a transmission that changed everything. "The Vrathos are transferring us," she said, her face pale. Part 1. The Prisoners of Debris Station. The metal chains around Daewon's wrists felt cold against his skin. He stood in a line with 22 other humans, all of them dirty and exhausted. The Vrathos guards towered over them, their gray skin and forearms making them look like monsters from a nightmare. The largest guard shoved Daewon forward with one massive hand. "Move, human filth," the guard said in broken human language. Daewon stumbled but kept his balance. Behind him, Jiwoo caught his arm to steady him. She was younger than Daewon, maybe in her early 30s, with oil stains on her face and hands. Before their capture, she had been the best mechanic on his salvage ship. Now she was just another prisoner. They walked through the massive doors of Debris Station Theta 9. The station was enormous, stretching out in all directions like a metal city floating in space. Through the windows, Daewon could see mountains of destroyed spaceships, twisted metal, and broken technology from a dozen different alien species. This was where the Vrathos brought all the wreckage from their wars and battles. This was where they would spend the next 10 years of their lives. A Vrathos officer waited for them in the central chamber. He was bigger than the guards, with scars across his face and a cruel smile on his lips. His name was Kelthros, and he was the station commander. "Welcome to your new home, humans," Kelthros said. His voice was deep and mocking. "You are here because your pathetic species tried to fight us. You lost. Now you will work for the Vrathos Dominion, sorting through garbage until you are old and broken. If you work hard, you might survive 10 years. If you cause trouble, we will throw you out the airlock and watch you freeze in space." One of the younger humans, a pilot named Tai Sung, stepped forward. "We are protected by the Galactic Council. You cannot treat us like slaves." Kelthros laughed. It was a horrible sound. "The Council does not care about you, boy. Humans are weak. Humans are nothing. You are the lowest species in the galaxy, and here you will learn your place." He nodded to the guards, and they dragged the prisoners away to their quarters. The rooms were small and dirty, with barely enough space for sleeping mats on the floor. Daewon counted his crew. All 23 of them had survived the journey. That was something, at least. That night they gathered in the largest room. Daewon looked at their faces. He saw fear, anger, and desperation. They were engineers, mechanics, pilots, and technicians. They were good people who had been caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now they needed hope. "Listen to me," Daewon said quietly. "I know this looks bad. I know we are trapped here with aliens who hate us. But we are humans. We survive. We always find a way." "How?" asked Mira, the communications officer. She was normally calm and collected, but now her voice shook. "We have no ship, no weapons, no way to call for help. We are prisoners. For now," Daewon said. "But we are also engineers. We know how to build things. We know how to fix things. And this station is full of parts from destroyed ships. They think it is all garbage, but we know better." Jiwoo's eyes lit up. "You want us to build something?" "I want us to think about possibilities," Daewon said carefully. "I want us to stay alert and stay alive. 10 years is a long time. A lot can happen in 10 years. The next morning, the guards took them to the sorting facility. It was a massive warehouse filled with debris. Broken hull plates, damaged engines, shattered computer systems, and twisted weapons lay in huge piles that stretched as far as the eye could see. The smell of burned metal and leaked fuel filled the air. "Your job is simple," a Vrathos supervisor told them. "You separate the metal by type. Steel here, titanium there, aluminum in that pile. Everything else goes to the recycling furnace. If you are too slow, you do not eat. If you steal anything, you die. Understand?" The humans nodded. They had no choice. They worked for 12 hours that first day. The labor was backbreaking. The metal was heavy, and the tools they were given were old and broken. But Daewon watched everything carefully. He noticed that the Vrathos guards were lazy. They sat in their stations and watched screens instead of paying attention to the prisoners. He noticed that the sorting facility had cameras, but many of them were broken or pointing in the wrong directions. Most importantly, he noticed the quality of the scrap. During their lunch break, Daewon sat with Jiwoo and Hana. Hana was their weapons specialist, a woman in her late 20s who had served in Earth's defense forces before joining the salvage crew. "Look at this," Daewon said quietly, showing them a piece of metal he had hidden in his sleeve. "Do you know what this is?" Jiwoo examined it closely. Her eyes widened. "This is Viridian alloy. This is from one of their old warships. The Viridians disappeared 50 years ago, but their technology was supposed to be incredible. I saw at least 20 pieces like this in the piles today," Daewon said. "The Vrathos do not recognize it. They think it is just old metal, but we know better." Hana leaned in closer. "I saw weapon components from at least 4 different species. Some of them looked almost intact. The Vrathos are idiots. They are throwing away fortune in technology because they are too arrogant to look closely. Exactly, Day1 said. We need to start identifying the best pieces. We need to hide them where the Vrathos will not look. And we need to do it carefully, because if they catch us, we are dead. Over the next 3 weeks, the humans worked their sorting job during the day and held secret meetings at night. They created a system. Tae-sung would distract the guards by asking stupid questions. Mira would hack into the broken cameras and loop old footage so the Vrathos would not see what they were doing. Meanwhile, Jiwoo, Hana, and the other engineers would identify valuable components and hide them in the recycling bins that were scheduled to be emptied into a forgotten section of the station. They found amazing things in the scrap: power cores that still held charges, computer systems with intact data, hull plating made from alloys stronger than anything Earth had ever developed, weapon systems that could punch through standard military shields. All of it was being thrown away by the Vrathos, who were too proud to admit that other species might have built something better than them. One night, about a month into their imprisonment, Kelthros came to inspect their quarters. He walked through the rooms, looking at everything with disgust. You humans live like rats, he said, huddled together in the dark, whispering your pathetic plans. Do you think I do not know what you are doing? Do you think I am stupid? Daewon felt his heart stop. Had they been discovered? Kelthros smiled. You are planning to survive. You are planning to make it through 10 years and return to your worthless planet. Let me tell you something, human. You will not survive. Most of you will die here. The rest will wish they had died. This station breaks everyone eventually. You are not special. He turned and walked out. The guards followed him. For a long moment nobody spoke. Then Jiwoo started laughing. It was a quiet, bitter sound. He has no idea. He actually has no idea what we are planning. What are we planning? Asked Tae-sung. We have been collecting parts, but for what? We cannot build a ship here. We have no facilities, no tools, and no time. Daewon looked at his crew. He saw tired faces and dirty clothes. He saw people who had been worked half to death and humiliated every day. But he also saw something else. He saw anger. He saw determination. He saw the same spirit that had carried humanity from caves to the stars. We are going to find a place to build, Daewon said. Mira is going to hack deeper into their systems and find us a forgotten corner of this station where we can work. Jiwoo and Hana are going to design something that can fly, fight, and get us out of here. And the rest of us are going to make it happen, one piece at a time. That is insane, said Mira. But she was smiling. That is human, said Daewon. Now let us get to work.